Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mod Golf Podcast Video Edition. My name is Colin Weston, and I am the host of the podcast. And I just finished up an incredibly engaging conversation for our audio portion of the podcast for this episode. And that was with Robert Sereci, who is the general manager and chief operating officer of Medinah Country Club, 30 minutes west of Chicago. And Robert is doing unbelievably innovative things to change the culture and the mindset and the perception and even the infrastructure of what's going on at Medinah over the last 5 years. And this has very little to do with technology. And I love the story that we talked about. And rather than me tell Robert's story here, I want to introduce him. So I'll get us both on screen at the same time. So Robert, it was great to see you earlier and have that conversation. So welcome back for the video edition of our podcast here.
Thank you, Colin. Thanks again for inviting me to participate.
Absolutely. So to start us off here, perhaps you can talk about your background, some of the work you've done before being hired at Medinah in 2015, what you've actually done. You've spent time in Hong Kong and across the United States of working at other clubs with your background in hospitality, not necessarily in golf, which I think is part of your superpower. So for our audience here, for the people watching, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to get that position to then unleash the transformational change that Medinah has experienced over the last few years?
Well, I do have a little bit of a different background, Colin, in that I don't have a golf background, but lo and behold, I don't have a very robust food and beverage background either. When I moved from Europe in 1985, I attended hospitality school in Cal Poly, Pomona, with the intent of going back to Switzerland, where I grew up, to do an apprenticeship program. Oh. So I didn't work in hotels or restaurants. I was waiting to go back. And then the war broke out in Yugoslavia and they took away my passport. So here I am graduating hospitality school with no hospitality experience. And that was an interesting part for me in that the strategy of relying to get trained in Europe didn't work out. So I had to kind of catch up. And when I started in the club business, I quickly realized that I could go back. I can't go back and have an in-depth experience in food and beverage or golf. I said, I have to focus on those skill set that I think may be missing that other people don't have. And to me, that was basically leadership, process. And that's why I got my MBA, finance. So while I have teammates that are blessed with their backgrounds, mine is very different in that I have more of a business background and HR, marketing, entrepreneurial. And so that has served me well, especially in the last 10 years in that, again, because even with my lack of robust food and beverage experience, just like in golf, I see everything differently. And I don't naturally gravitate towards solutions that if someone says we have an F&B issue, they, as an F&B expert, they immediately gravitate towards a solution they think. In golf, the same thing, right? You gravitate. I am so fortunate that this lack of expertise has been such a blessing for me. The one, I am surrounded by people that are really, really good at what they do because I have to disproportionately rely on their expertise while I rely on mine. So it's a little unusual. I've moved 9 times. I just received at Medinah my first 5-year pin. Never been anywhere for 5 years. I am a turnaround. I am a person that goes in, identifies challenges, works to solve them, and then move on. So 5 years is the longest I've been anywhere.
Wow. So you use the word entrepreneur, that you have kind of a lot of what you do is entrepreneurial. So I'm very curious to dig down into that, Robert, because a place like Medinah or any existing corporation or business or organization, a lot of people will think, well, if you're not a startup, and especially if you're not in tech, what does that have to do with entrepreneurship? And I think you and I both know that answer, but I'd love to expand on that, because what you've created within the culture and building trust there in order to, and consensus there with what you've actually done over the last few years, you are what we call an entrepreneur, an entrepreneur within an organization. So can you talk a bit about that? Because there's sure watching this and listening to the podcast episode, which we'll have the link down in the comments below, so people can see listen to our expanded conversation there. I'd love to hear your insights and your thoughts on entrepreneurship within the golf industry, especially clubs and existing organizations, of how they can then start that journey to move towards transformation, whether they're in equipment or whether they're in more of a service-based organization like with Medinah.
So the bar when it comes to innovation in clubs is not set very high. Never has. That's why people keep using the word innovation in clubs. And again, as we discussed earlier, much of what we did at Medinah was not innovative to the outside world. It is revolutionary for us in our space. But it really what it boils down to is how do we get people to get buy-in? How to get buy-in. And innovation has to be in a position to solve a specific problem. We don't innovate in Medinah for innovation's sake. We try to innovate with the intent of solving a problem that we have. So we didn't get a food truck because we just felt like getting a food truck. We have 644 acres with all the amenities that we were building. What we wanted to do is how do we have an efficient way of servicing 3 golf courses all over the property without building kitchens everywhere. Well, the food truck was it, right? So not only does the food truck have a true operational need, but also we talk about community, a symbol of community. A food truck, think about it, right? I mean, so when people see our food truck, they just can't believe that it's ours. So we are innovative. We've done a tremendous amount of technology. We have beacon technology, right? So we know who's coming through the front door. It pops up with their face. So we can recognize members. We work with a partner, Pacesetter, for our app to have very innovative features. We were the club that created a feature from your app where you can invite a prospective member to join. No papers. It's a link with a download light version of our app. I mean, think about this. The old-fashioned way was to give people brochures, or the member had to come in and get a pamphlet, right? Which the prospective member maybe reads and puts somewhere away. But in our way, our prospective members download the Medinah logo and the app, and it resides on their phone. I mean, how much more powerful can it be that I have my app on your phone and you get to see it and you can learn all you want about Medinah through the app and then schedule appointments, schedule tours, everything you want to. That was very innovative, but that all happened towards the end after we got everyone's trust in that we're doing the right thing.
Nice, nice. Now, when a lot of people think of Medinah, or in the past, before you were now, of course, changing that messaging that you were putting out there of what it is that you do and why you do it, people think about your 3 championship golf courses, these iconic tournaments that have been played, PGA Championship with Sergio wrapping it around a tree and running towards the shot, the green, and all those things. So can you name 1 or 2 things that you are really proud of that have nothing to do with golf that you have managed to implement over the last 4 or 5 years?
Oh, I would have to tell you by far, the 2 things that I'm most proud of is one is the employee culture that we have built. I can tell you that it's not just my opinion, but we have, again, documented evidence as an MBA. We like to measure things. And I can tell you from our very low turnover rate to our high engagement scores, we have built an environment at Medinah where we deeply care for one another. I mean, and I say intimate, I use the word love a lot. And people are like, I love my people. It's like, how can you love? I love my team. I love my people. And so I'm so proud that we genuinely have this relationship with caring. That's why people are shocked when they come to Medinah. We hug and kiss all the time, you know, and not just the staff, but also members. Our members are very caring. When COVID hit, we did not lay off a single person in the membership. We chose to pay everybody, even though no one was working, to demonstrate how much they care about the staff. And in return, our staff is so appreciative that this is a gesture that we'll never forget, because your brand is not what you stand for during the good times. Your brand comes to light during the hard times. And when everybody's laying off in the corporate world, we made a deliberate decision to keep paying everybody, right? Even if they're not working, because to us, community and family, and this notion that we care deeply for one another is part of our brand and our DNA. I'm proud of that. And the second thing I'm proud of is our leadership, our board members, and our governance model to have the courage 5 years ago, 6 years ago, or more to say, you know what? We can't do this anymore. We can't keep doing the same mistake over and over. We have to think differently. Our governance model has to change. We have to clarify our roles, stand behind, work as a team with management. Scott, this is why we are as successful as we are because of that governance and our employees. I'm very proud of that.
Love that. Love that. And you spoke that one of the things that you do just naturally, just from your upbringing, is embracing people physically and hugging them. And you don't have that right now, of course, with COVID. So let's expand on that a little bit. Is how is that since March? How has that affected not necessarily the bottom line? Because I know that probably Medina, like everywhere else, the courses are full. Rounds of golf are up this year because golf is naturally a socially distanced sport, unlike others. But how have you managed to engage, and using that word trust again, and make sure that you have maintained that trust you have with your members already? So what things have you done to maintain the culture that you've spent the last 4 years transforming and building up during these challenging times?
So let me tell you that we are firm believers in measuring and asking our members for their feedback. What we did is, as soon as COVID hit, we surveyed our members with multiple surveys to gauge their comfort level and their trust in us in doing the right thing, both operationally and from a safety perspective. So we have documented evidence again that demonstrates that our members, 94%, trust that we will do the right thing, we'll take good care of them. So we know that we have their trust when it comes to their safety. What we did immediately is with the management team is we typically, the year before, we approve capital projects, and everything from the benign, the roads, the lighting, replace this, replace that. And what we did, we quickly realized with the team that life is going to be different for the season. The indoors, we can no longer rely on the indoors in any great shape. As beautiful as our clubhouse is, as much as we spent, we pivoted and we said we have to redefine the member experience outside. So what we did, again, a little innovative and somewhat controversial, we invested in a very large LED display. I mean, 18 feet by 10 feet, right? Portable. And something you would see on tournaments and we said, look, we have to do this. And again, because they trust us, there was no problem approving it because they believed in us. And we bought this massive screen, and it sits outside. So all of the sports events, because we wanted to bring something for them where we can encourage them to stay put. Absent of some sort of activity, it's hard for them to stay at the club at 7, 8 hours. And they did want to be there the whole day. So we bought this beautiful display. So all of the golf tournaments, all sporting events now are televised outside. We moved all of our seating outside. We built an impromptu beer garden, beautiful beer garden with picnic tables and outdoor with beers and all kinds of drinks. So we redefined that experience. So that's what we did. We kind of had to shift everything outside. We instituted reservation systems for our pools. So much of what we did, as you can imagine, was for the very first time. But I think we did really well in that. Like I said earlier, only 9 members out of total, they resigned. But however, we have over 30 members that are in the pipeline to join. So clearly, regardless of what benchmark or metric you used, I think our members are still, they trust us. They're happy to be at the club, and we've pivoted to make the club even more of a welcoming community. Because as you know, in the mental state, the mental state that not only our members, but our staff and the families are going through, they need a place where they can relax, a kind of an escape from the real world. And for good or bad, the club is that place where they can have a quote of sense of normalcy, where they can reconnect. Now, is it hard for us because we're so touchy-feely? Yeah, very hard. That we're so accustomed to touching and hugging and kissing. And so it is a little awkward. I think we're a little bit better, but it is for an intimate environment like ours, it wasn't easy, and it's
I,
still not easy.
I bet. And you used a term that actually you didn't put this one out there during our podcast interview, and that is experience, even though that comes through with everything that you do as far as your staff experience, your cultural experience, your customer experience in this case, almost like UX or user experience for a country club. And that is, to me, it seems like that is kind of the pillar of what it is that you've manifested and brought forward here as far as highlighting and not necessarily changing, because it was always there. It sounds like you've heightened it as far as the experience, especially the non-golf experiences, but also the messaging of letting people know that this is a welcoming, inviting, warm place, an experience for community. So what you've done. So hey, we could keep going on here, but we really want to encourage our viewers here to then, like I said, click the link below to listen to the expanded conversation Robert and I had, and he really dug down into the transformation over the last 5 years. Really fascinating, engaging stuff. So don't want to give away too much on that. But before we do go away here, Robert, one of the last things, since you do have this wealth of entrepreneurial experience within large organizations, which I think is even harder to maintain or make happen than starting things from scratch like I have done. It's got its own challenges, but perhaps you can give a few tips or advice or cautionary tales for people out there that have that entrepreneurial bug, or especially for the thousands of golf courses owners and managers out there that right now are I wouldn't say refusing innovation, but are still, I guess they are rejecting that and don't really see the value. Can perhaps you talk to that a little bit of things that you can try to, or the way you can get things started to start to get those small wins and build consensus for people right now that are sitting on the sidelines because they think it's too risky to take any entrepreneurial chances and innovations within within the golf sector, and actually any industry for that matter.
Honestly, the same principles apply to us that in any industry. Medinah was an incredible brand, and I can tell you that 9 people out of 10 when they come to our gate say wow. But here's the thing, like most products or services, wow doesn't translate into sales. That's not how that works, because it's not about the stuff, right? And golf courses, whether private, public, are so quick to invest in those things that are stuff, and expecting that the success hinges on the back of the stuff you built or you bought or you improved, when in reality, it all comes down to experiences. Experiences. It doesn't take a whole lot. All you have to focus on, how can we improve the guest or the member experience? And more often than not, it doesn't require millions of dollars. It doesn't, right? So for us, it was focusing on the experience and not just so much on the wow. It's the experience. And to do that, you have to have what? You got to have staff that can deliver on that brand promise. So, but people miss the first step. Staff, staff, staff. People, people, people. They are the one that will make that innovation a reality, the strategic plan an operational reality, and they will deliver that memorable, personalized club experience like we have in Medinah. It's all about the staff. Absent of that, you're just spinning your wheels.
Love it. Well, on that nugget of wisdom there, I'm going to leave our conversation there. As I did mention already, people can listen to the podcast episode by clicking below there in the comments there, which I provided. So this has been amazing. Again, 2 for 2 here with our conversations today. So Robert Sereci, who is the General Manager and Chief Operating Officer of Medinah Country Club, just outside of Chicago. Robert, thank you for joining us today on the Mod Golf Podcast Video Edition. Really appreciate it.
Again, a big thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it.
That's great. Take care. Bye for now.
Thank you.